Mr. Newman, is the rig insured? Do you have hull insurance?
The company carries
for the construction cost?
Company carries a comprehensive program of hull and marine insurance, yes. The rig was insured.
At something comparable to its $350 million construction cost?
No, similar to the kind of decision you and I would make about insuring a home. We don't insure our homes at the original construction cost. We insure our homes at the market value, and the rig was insured at the market value.
And what was that market value?
$560 million.
$560 million. Can you explain to us why you are now in district court seeking to limit your liability under an 1851 law to $27 million?
Two reasons behind the company's filing of the limitation of liability action. First and foremost, we were instructed to file by our insurance underwriters. In the immediate aftermath of the event, they instructed us to file that limitation of liability action, and so we did that to respond to their request and preserve the company's insurance program. And secondly, with the number of lawsuits that have been filed against the company in various jurisdictions at the federal level, at the state level, the limitation of liability action serves to consolidate all of those actions into one venue.
I will say it is appalling, having been in New Orleans and over a 3-day period and seen the number of ads on TV. About every 20 minutes there was an ad from a law firm. Mr. Gao said there are numbers moving into Louisiana to file and pay people to sign up for legal services, so I can understand you're willing. But on the one hand, you have insured your rig to cover the company's costs. On the other hand, you move to protect yourself against those who wouldn't be compensated anywhere near what the company would be under its insurance.
Believe me, Chairman, if I could have the rig back and the 11 people back, that's clearly the decision I would make.
I understand. Just want to make that clear. Mr. McKay, you said we couldn't have predicted, that's not exactly your words, that gas would escape, that the blow-up preventer would fail. We will learn from this, and we want you to learn from this. But in aviation, when an aircraft is operating at 5-7 miles altitude, there's no curb to pull over, look under the hood, and see what's wrong. It has to be right before it leaves the ground. At 5,000-foot depth, it's a comparable situation. You don't have the ability to send someone down in a rig to look at what's going wrong and fix it. You operate with remote vehicles. You know that. You've had the experience. The Norwegians operate in similar depths. Their rigs are verified by a third-party entity that makes sure that all those safeguards have been put in place. When an aircraft comes down from 35,000 feet to land at an airport, it's operating roughly 165 miles an hour. Very little margin for error. That's why the flaps are deployed and the thrust reverser is activated, and then the brakes are applied. And if any one of those fails, or two of the three fail, the other is supposed to protect that aircraft and bring that aircraft to a halt. It seems to me, from my years of experience in safety investigations, that there is not this kind of backup and redundancy at those depths in the ocean, with those enormous pressures, with the temperature at roughly 30 degrees, which at freshwater would freeze, but salt water can sustain that kind of temperature, that there is not the kind of safety mindset in underwater drilling that there is in aviation. Now, if you have a takeaway from this experience, it's that there needs to be. You need to have redundancy in those operations. There is, I said it earlier, half of the seafood shellfish production of the United States in these 660,000 square miles of Gulf. There are wave action on the surface that I observed in the overflight. I have photos taken of it. There are underwater currents that often go in the opposite direction of the air currents. There is movement of the dispersant and of the oil, and its contamination of the sea life. It may be, in some cases, it may be irreversible. If you had, and your industry, and the American Petroleum Institute, and the Minerals Management Services, and the Coast Guard had all been thinking about constructively how we operate safely at those depths, under those pressures, at those temperatures, you might have installed the protections. Those are photos on the screen there that I took from the Coast Guard aircraft. It's just sobering and stunning, as Ms. Miller said. It takes your breath away to see the effects. So I want to understand, I'll just ask this one question, whether you and Transocean together have had worked out a scenario of redundancy of the blowout preventers at that depth and those temperatures, and if not, why not? And if you did and rejected it, why?
We have recommended, or at least provided some ideas to the Department of Interior and Minerals Management Service that we would suggest to recertify blowout preventers, to test in some additional ways, in different ways, to relook at the design and see if redundancy, extra redundancy should be built in. And a fourth thing is subsea capability and intervention capability for the industry and how that should be assembled. And that is what I would say that we think right now are improvement areas that could be looked at quickly.
Mr. Newman?
I agree with Mr. McKay's assessment of actions that can be taken in the interim, but the real answer to the question is only going to be discovered when we complete all of the investigations.
We'll leave it at that. Those photos you saw passing on the screen were in the impact area in the Gulf. Quite sobering. Thank you very much for your testimony. Members will have follow-up questions. We expect your responses to them.